Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you a number of techniques you can do with our Lumi paints, which are our rather new addition to the Craftbox family. These are absolutely amazing. So the main property of those paints is that they are quite low viscosity paints, meaning they are quite liquid, and therefore you can do with them a lot of techniques that you traditionally would not be able to do with more with thicker paints basically. So I'm going to take you through a number of techniques, and I'm also going to introduce you to our essentials kit, which is something that you can get from either Craftbox or Creative Craft Academy, and I am going to link everything down below so that if you are interested in either paints or the kit, then you can get it from there. So let's have a look at the selection of the Lumi paint colors. These are not all of them. We now have 23 colors of Lumi paints, and they range from pastels to really dark colors. We have a Halloween collection, we have a summer collection, tropical collection, we have a sea collection where you can find this beautiful dark blue, and many other collections as well. When you get your Lumi paint, and before you start using them, you really need to give them a good shake, because they are very highly pigmented paints that have a lot of mica in them, and that mica in this very much a liquid base sinks to the bottom very quickly. That's why the essential kit makes it so much easier to work with the paints, and I will show you why in a second. So let's have a look at the range of colors and the coverage. So I'm going to pick just a few colors just to show you. So this one is Clear Horizon from the Night Sky collection. I am going to pick the Witch color from the Halloween collection, and I think I'm going to go for green as well. So I'm just going to take a few of those, quite in keeping with the current season. So what you need to do is you need to give them a really good shake, and they all have mixing bowls in them. So if you're not hearing the mixing bowls, then you're not mixing hard enough. And when your paints have been sitting for a while, you really need to give them a really good shake. So before we begin, I am going to touch on the essential kit, because it really makes your life easier when it comes to using the paints. So in the essential kit, you've got all sorts of bottles and little pots to use different techniques. One of my favorite elements is what I call a little mixing daisy, and it's just the perfect size for your Lumis. Inside you also have 3 sprayers, and they are very long, so we're going to be chopping them down. You have 3 bottles, and then you have 2 of the larger dropper bottles and 2 smaller dropper bottles. Here you go, and everything that goes with them. So the little plastic dropper parts, and then the caps as well. So you got 4 of those. So that's what's in your kit. So what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm just going to use the mixing daisy, and I'm going to show you how and why I feel it just makes everything easier. So when you have a paint as liquid as Lumis are, your mica is sinking to the bottom quite quickly. So if you just pour a little shallow layer of the paint into your mixing daisy, then before you pick it up, then you can just mix it up. And then you don't have to worry about not getting all the mica. Okay, so let's have a look at some basics first. And let's have a look at the coverage of the paint. So this paint is semi-translucent, so you really shouldn't expect a full coverage. However, you can achieve full coverage if you paint over the same area several times, especially after the paint is dry. So as you can see, you get that semi-translucent effect, but the key point of this paint is that it is incredibly shimmery. And let me just show you quickly a different color. So here is that purple. So that beautiful witch color, and again, just like the blue, it's got that incredible shimmer. So painting anything that you want to paint with those paints, obviously it's perfectly fine. You can get a really lovely coverage on about 2 coats. Have a look at this wood here, especially when you're painting it untreated. I appreciate that. I always say make sure you gesso your surface, but in this case, because it just sinks so deeply into the grain, and then especially if you want to see the grain, then I would suggest maybe not this time. But as you can see, you get that beautiful shimmer, and this is only 2 coats, so this is how much effort it takes to get a really nice coverage, so not too much. Now let me just show you how that works quickly. So I'm just going to cover this with the blue, and as you can see, you just all you have to do is you just have to smoothen it out from edge to edge, and you get that beautiful color. So this is, you could leave it this way if you wanted to, or you can then just add a second coat and you're going to have a nice full coverage after that. So one technique I am particularly fond of when it comes to Lumi paints is the one stroke technique. So you may be familiar with beautiful flowers and foliage being created. That technique, it's basically a technique when you load your brush with one paint on one edge and then the other color on the other edge, and then you just paint with those two. So you can achieve a really beautiful effect by just using one brush. Now you can do something similar with your Lumi paints, especially when you're using 2 such beautiful and shimmery colors. So just have a look how beautiful and easy this is to blend 2 colors together. So one thing I really love when it comes to Lumis is I love to detail with them. So whenever you have a project where you have a rice paper and you have a lot of detail on that rice paper, you may want to add a little bit of Lumi to create some highlights. So you can see what I've done here, and especially under crackle paste, that looks absolutely beautiful. And I've also highlighted a lot of the elements on the drawers, and I've added some highlights here. So the best way to do this is on the rice paper before you cover it with either gloss or cracking paste. But I'm just going to show you quickly how you can add some highlights just as a general idea. So I've added a little bit of a white gold. This color is currently not available in any of the sets, but we have the beautiful macaroon collection, which is just filled with beautiful light colors. And all you're going to do is you're just going to go into those areas here, and then you're just going to add some highlights. Just have a look. That is super subtle. And I'm just going to add a little bit more. Using a fine tip brush is really best for this. So, and when you're doing this on your rice paper, that before it's been treated, you're going to get that beautiful kind of color that seeps out, which is just great. So this is another technique, and it looks so effective. Even on this covered and finished piece, that just looks so effective. Now another thing I really love to do when it comes to Lumis, I love to use it on chipboard, and it is really made for working beautifully on chipboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of chipboard and show you how that paint performs. So I have taken a little bit of colour called coffee and colour called turquoise, and I'm going to take it onto my brush and then just start painting my chipboard. The best thing about using Lumis on your chipboard is that because they dry so quickly, they don't warp your chipboard. Another thing that happens when you're painting it is that all those little crevices, they will not be filled with paint, because paint is so very liquid. And I'm sure we're all very familiar with the situation where we had to take a brush and then just really go through all those little crevices because the paint just ended up being there, and we don't want to lose that definition of our chipboard. So So with Lumis, you're not going to get that. So as you can see, this is perfect coverage, and you don't have any of the paint just stuck in between those intricate elements. Now, another thing I really love when it comes to Lumis is blending them into one another. So I can take a little bit of turquoise and I can very gently just blend one into another and get that fantastic blend effect. And then, for example, then I can carry on with the central part of that bridge being in turquoise. And then I'm just going to feather it out here, and I'll take some brown and then cover the rest of the chipboard with brown. Whenever you're blending one color into another, you really should make sure that your brush has very minimal amount of paint left, so then you can just feather that paint into one another and then create that gorgeous ombre effect. All right, let's lift this up and show you. So as you can see, you get that lovely transition there between one color and another. And I really like the look of natural chipboard without any paint on it, but at the same time, sometimes for some projects I really want to have it painted. And the beauty of Lumis is, as you can see, they will not warp your chipboard, which is a really big problem when using paints which are much thicker and also which dry much slower, because the water content gets through all those layers of the chipboard and it starts warping the paper, and we don't want that. We want our chipboard to stay exactly nice and straight until we decide to bend it and, for example, put it on a bottle. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to show you two enameling techniques, and for these you really need your essential kit, and again I've linked everything at the bottom of the screen for you. So I am going to take a smaller bottle and I'm going to take that little nozzle, and I'm also going to take a little spray bottle, and in the spray bottle set we have the sprayers with really long tube. I would suggest that you don't cut it to size, you cut it a little bit longer so you can roughly cut the half of it off. And then what you're going to do is, when you're putting all the liquid in, you're just going to turn it and twist it just like this, so that you get every little bit of liquid out of that bottle. So the color I'm going to use for enameling is Stormy Skies, and this one is from the Night Sky collection. And I can quite easily just pour it into my bottle, and I'm going to divide it between the sprayer bottle and then the dropper. The beauty of this is that when you finish with the sprayer bottle, when you finish with your dropper, you can just pour it back into the pot and then just use it as you would normally use your paint. So that is quite handy. So when it's in the bottle, give it a little bit of mix. And then here, and then what you can do, you can start enameling your chipboard, and you're just painting with that really fine nozzle. And what will happen is, when that paint dries, it's going to stay raised. It will sink a little bit, but you're just going to get that lovely enamel effect. Just slightly lower than it is now, because obviously the water content is going to reduce. So have a look at this beautiful enamel result. Now another thing you can do is, as I mentioned before, you can just take a sprayer, and I'm just going to put a little bit something underneath. You can just take a sprayer and then spray your chipboard, and we'll take a few pumps before the sprayer gets filled, and that is a super quick way to enamel your entire design. Now I would say do not leave it on a sprayed surface, because the fixative that we have in those paints is very strong, so it will just glue everything together. So all you should really do is just to move it off this and then just put it somewhere else and then just leave it to dry. It may still stick a little bit, but that should be okay. You should be able to remove it quite easily. I love those techniques. They are so simple to use, and again, when you're done with this, you can just pour it back into the bottle and then wash it off and get ready for the next color. Another way to use your Lumi paints is on your resin, and I love this technique because painting resin is not always the easiest task, especially if you have something as intricate as that little frame here. So what you're going to do with this one, you can just take a brush and then dip it in the paint. I've chosen a color called burgundy, and this one is from the Rose collection, and you can just paint directly onto your resin. Now you can of course gesso it first, but when you paint directly you are going to get that beautiful marbling effect. Over time the paint is going to sink into the deeper areas of the resin and is going to get a little bit more faint on the raised areas of the resin, and that will create that lovely marbled effect. Now if you want a quicker and instant coverage, you can also take your sprayer bottle, exactly like what we have done a moment ago. You can then cut your sprayer, shorter, and then just pop that into the bottle, and then we can just take a little napkin and then give it a spray. And as you can see, this just very quickly covers your resin frame. I'm just going to take it away and put it to the side and then just leave it to dry. And also, just like with any other Lumi paints and any other techniques, you are going to get that absolutely beautiful shine from all the mica that we have put in those paints. So one of the things I really love using Lumi paints for is using it as wax, and you can just do it by touching your finger into the paint and then very gently just brushing onto your project. You can also just use a brush. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use a brush and dab the excess off, and then very gently just start brushing the gold paint onto this beautiful wing, and then through that you're going to get that lovely subtle coverage. Let's have a look in a bit of a close-up. So this is so quick and so instant, and you don't have to have so many different products in your stash. You can just have one and then use it in all those ways. Now if you wanted a little bit more coverage, then you can just dip your finger in and then just dip it, touch it onto your wing, and then you're just going to get a little bit more coverage, just like here. But Lumis are also perfect to use them directly on your brass. So you don't have to black gesso it first. Of course, this brass represents anything that you want to black gesso, be it a really large project or a smaller project, or resin or metal embellishments, but Lumis work really well directly on brass. So I'm going to take a couple of colors and I'm going to show you how well they work. Just have a look at this. It just gives you that instant hint and pop of color, and because the paints are semi-translucent, you will still see that brass, both texture and also the color, so they're not going to completely cover the entire project. And color blending with those is a dream. So I'm going to take, for example, a little bit of that turquoise. I'm not sure if these colors go so well together, but it doesn't matter because this is just to show you how beautifully they blend into one another, and you obviously get that fantastic shimmer. Now if you get any pulling off color, all you have to do is just very gently just brush it down and you have that sorted, and they will be dry in no time. In fact, that red one is nearly dry already. So I really hope you enjoyed this masterclass. There is so much you can do with Lumis. If you forget any of the techniques, do go back to this video. Make sure you save it. Please share it with others. I would absolutely love if you subscribed. And if you could share this video, which contains so many different hints and tips. I'm going to leave you with a little summary just at the end of the video, a little cheat sheet that you can screenshot and you can print out, just explaining everything you can do with Lumis, and then to act as a little bit of a reminder of everything we spoke about. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!